Hello class, this is a video recording of the answers for Blgps Primary 3 SA2 2013 revision paper, booklets A and B. Now as a reminder to all, remember to be ready with a green pen as you watch the video and take down the corrections if you need to. If there are any new things that you have learned from this video, please make sure that you also copy them down onto your exam scripts. Now question 1. The diagram below shows 3 living things: banana tree, girl, and a tiger. Which of the following statements are true about all these 3 living things? Now before going to the question, there are certain things that should come to your head straight away. Well, for all living things, they display all these characteristics. Number 1, they can grow. Number 2, they can reproduce. Number 3, they are able to respond to changes in the surrounding. Number 4, they need food, air, and water to survive. So these are the 4 characteristics that defines a living thing. Now let's look at the option. Option A, we have considered this option. They grow, so it's true. They respond to changes, that's true as well. They need air, food, and water, that is to survive, true. Now, moving from place to place is not a characteristic of a definite characteristic of a living thing. In fact, this is a characteristic of animals. Alright, so not all living things can move from place to place. So for this answer, for this question, the answer should be A, B, and C, option 3. Question 2. Danish found an animal in a garden. He wanted to confirm if the animal found was an insect. Which of the following characteristics should he observe? Now the keyword in this question is animal found was an insect, to see if animal found was an insect. Now if you recall, under the kingdom of animals, right, this is the kingdom, we have various groupings of animals, right? So we have insect, we have fish, we have reptiles, we have the amphibians, we also have the birds. Now to classify an animal as an insect, there are some what we call defining characteristics. These are characteristics that are different from any other groups of animals. So we use these defining characteristics to consider if an animal is an insect. Now for an insect, there are a few, or rather 2 defining characteristics that you must know of. Number 1, the first defining characteristic is that insects have 3 pairs of legs. So they get a total of 6 legs. Number 2, insects have 3 body parts. Next, you should also know that insects has got an exoskeleton covering its soft body. So the exoskeleton is basically a hard outer body covering. Now if you recall, because of this hard rigid outer covering, as an insect grows, it would have to molt or to shed the outer covering so as to accommodate the increase in the body size. In fact, there is one more characteristic that we should take note of, and that is it has a pair of feelers, or we can call the antenna. Well, do note that not every characteristic is a defining characteristics. So to define something as an insect, it must have all these characteristics here. Alright? Now, there are other characteristics of an insect, but this may not form a defining characteristic, such as you can say that an insect can lay eggs to reproduce, but this may not be defining. Next, you can also say that it may have wings, but this is not necessarily so. Birds do have wings as well. So therefore, saying that they lay eggs or they have wings are not defining of insects. So coming back to this question, the options available are the number of legs. Yes, we have just discussed this. This is true that he must observe the number of legs the animal have. The presence of wings? No. Not all insects have wings. For instance, ants do not have wings. Termites do not have wings. So this option is out. We also do not classify an animal as an insect based on the food it eats. So C is out as well. The number of body parts? Yes, he does have to look at this, as we've just discussed. So the answer here should be option A and D, number 2. Question 3, the diagram below shows that living things. Now you have to look at this diagram and observe. This hen here, basically a chicken, the female of a chicken is called a hen. So the hen here is laying eggs. So we can therefore quickly be able to say that it is reproducing. So answer has to be 3. They are able to reproduce. Question 4. Refer to the following diagram for questions 4 and 5. Question 4. Parts. Blank holds the plant firmly to the ground. Now let's run through all the different parts here and name and identify them and to know what are their functions. For part A, you have the flowers. This is for reproduction, because after the flowers are being fertilized, flowers change into fruits and they will bear seeds, and from new seeds a new plant can grow. B, you have a leaf. The leaf helps the plant make food. C, the stem. The stem has got 2 functions that you must know of. It supports the plant, as well as it transports water and food to all parts of the plant. Lastly, D, we have the roots, and this absorbs water for the plant from the soil, as well as it also holds the plant firmly to the ground. So in this case, for option 4, the obvious answer will be part D, the roots. Question 5, what will happen if part B is missing from the plant? Now if you take a look, part B is actually referring to the leaf. So the appropriate answer here is, let's take a look at option 1. The plant would not be able to reproduce. No, the role of the leaf is not to reproduce, it should be the flowers. The plant should not be able to make food. That is true, right? So the leaf is able to make food for the plant through the leaves because of the substance known as chlorophyll. So in the presence of light and chlorophyll, as well as carbon dioxide and water, the plant will be able to make food. Question 6. Now, which of the following protects the heart and the lungs? So, now for this question, I've put out this important diagram for you regarding the different systems, organ systems in the body. So you realize that to protect the heart and the lungs, or what we call a delicate organ such as heart and lungs, we need the rib cage. Yes? So this is the rib cage here that protects the heart and lungs, and the rib cage forms part of the skeletal system, whereas the heart and lungs form part of the circulatory and respiratory system. So the straightforward answer for this question should be the rib cage. Question 7, let's look at this diagram. Now, which of the following is true about blood flow at M and N after a meal? So this flow chart here actually shows how blood is actually circulating around the body. So we need to know which part has got more digested food. So in this case, you know that in the digestive system, the small intestine is heavily dependent. The body heavily depends on the small intestine for the absorption of digested food. So you would expect that blood leaving the small intestine to be rich in digested food, whereas the blood that comes into it should be poor or less in digested food. So in this case, answer should be option 2. Question 8. The diagram below shows the human digestive system. Which of the following statement best describe the function of the digestive juices in part P? Now let's take a close look at the saliva, or rather the saliva that is found in the mouth, which is part P. So we do know that the role of the saliva, or the main function of the saliva, is to make food wet and soft so that it can be swallowed easily, and it also breaks down the food into simpler substance. Okay, please note the difference that the saliva do not break down into smaller pieces. That is the function of the teeth. So note the difference between smaller pieces and simpler substance. Okay, so digestive systems, or rather the digestive juices, are capable of breaking things down into simpler substances. Okay, not smaller pieces. So the answer here for this question becomes very straightforward. They do make food soft. Option A is correct. They cut and slice food. No, digestive juices do not cut and slice. And part C, they help to break down food into simpler forms. Yes. So answer should be A and C only. 3. Question 9. Diana put a caterpillar into each of the 3 similar bottles as shown. Now, which of the following shows correctly what happened to the caterpillar after 1 week? After 1 week. Let's examine the different cases here. In bottle A, you see a caterpillar. The caterpillar has got is kept in a bottle with a wire gauze. A wire gauze allows air to come in and out, right? So in this case, the caterpillar has got air, but it does not have water. It does not have food that's required for survival, right? In bottle B, it is airtight cap, so it has no air, and it has no food. Neither does it have water. And lastly, in bottle C, the caterpillar does have air because it's wire gauze again. So it does have air. It has got food because it has some freshly plucked leaf. In fact, it does have water as well because the freshly plucked leaves contains water in it. So bottle C is the only one that meets all the three requirements for the survival of living things. So in this case, you will expect the caterpillar to be able to survive here. So this can survive. But for this one, you will expect it to be dead because there's no air, there's no food, and there's no water. So this for sure will die. Okay? And the same goes for this in bottle A. So the one that will survive is C. In this case, the answer should be option 1. Question 10. Let's study this flow chart. Jared observed organism D, E, and F. And he made the following statements about the organism in the flowchart below. So we will start with the flowchart from the top here, organism. The question asked is it able to move freely? Does it have hair? Does it have feathers? Now, if it's able to move freely or not, this is actually asking us to rule out whether is it a plant or an animal. Okay. In fact, you also can rule out the group fungi, right? So in this group here, it is not able to move freely. Whereas animal, yes, able to move freely. Okay, so in D here, you will expect it to be a fungi or a plant. Whereas here, you expect it to be an animal. Next, does it have hair? Now, this is the important characteristic, or I will say a defining characteristics of mammals. So if it does have hair, you expect this to be a mammal. If it's not, it could be something else, right? It could be bird, it could be insect, it could be reptile, it could be amphibian, it could be fish. Now the next question asks whether does it have feathers, right? So a feather is a defining characteristic of the bird, of birds. So let's take a look at the options. Organism D, we are sure that it's a fungi or a plant, so you can cross out option 2 straight away. Okay, option 2 is out. Organism E, you believe it's a mammal. We believe it's a mammal, so again, option 3 is out. That leaves us with option 1 and 4. Organism F, it must be a bird, so this is out. So answer is 1. Question 11, study the classification chart below. So this chart begins with animals, and then you have two groups, G, F, and G. Alright, we need to look at some of the common characteristics. So let's look at option 1. Option 1, live on land. Let's take a look at all these things to see if they all live on land. Okay, for the chicken, yes, it is true. Platypus, yes, they also live on land. Although they spend some time in the water, but they are considered to be living on land. Butterfly, true as well. So far, okay. Now, group G, live in water. Obviously, only the guppy live in water. So, in this case, only this is one that lives in water. So, false. Now, 4 legs in group F. 4 legs. I only see 2 legs for the chicken. Alright, so, and this one is an insect, so we will have 6 legs. So obviously this is wrong. So this we can cancel. Option 3 have feathers. Now only the chicken have feathers here. This is a mammal, so it has got hair, and butterfly has got an outer exoskeleton as the body covering. So this case, this is out as well. Now this should be correct then. Option 4, lay eggs. Yes, chicken lay eggs. Platypus is the only mammal that lays eggs. So this is a mammal, but it does lay eggs. Most mammals give birth, but the only animal that we know that give birth, or rather that lay eggs, is the platypus, as well as the spiny anteater. So platypus and spiny anteater. These are the two exceptions for for mammals that lays eggs. All right. Do also note that for the guppy is considered as a fish, but this is the only fish that give birth. Only fish that give birth. All other fish are considered to lay eggs. Right? They lay eggs. But they reproduce by laying eggs. But guppy is the only one that gives birth to its young. Okay. So therefore, the answer is 4. Question 12. Tia wanted to find out if the number of leaves affect the amount of water taken in by the plant. So she prepared the following setup as shown. Now, without even going into this, we are trying to find out how the leaves affect the amount of water taken by the plant. So this is experiment, and this is the experimental aim. Yes? So in this case, we are only going to change the number of leaves. Yeah? And everything else should be kept constant. So this is what we call the change variable, or sometimes what we call the independent variable. Okay? Only the independent variable or the change variable should be changed. Alright? So for the experiment to be considered a fair one. So, okay, let's go on. We know that for sure, leaves affect the rate of water loss. The more leaves there are, the faster the rate of water loss. How is water lost through the leaves? They are actually small little holes or pores known as stomata. Okay? Through these holes, water vapor can actually escape the plant or the leaves, so resulting in a loss of water. So in this experiment, we need to be sure that we only change the number of leaves. The question is asking which of the two above setups should be used in order to conduct a fair test. So the experiment we pick should be such that only the number of leaves is changed. Everything else should be kept the same. Yes? So let's do a quick count. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one possible set is that this 2 is not possible because we're not changing the number of leaves. So let's look at the options. So we can safely say that M and N is considered out because these two sets are not possible. What is being changed instead of the leaves is one has got roots and the other one has got the roots cut off. Yeah, so this is not the aim of the experiment. So that is incorrect. Option 2, M and O. M and O. So again, right, M has got this part, the roots cut off, and then O has got roots. And then you realize that the leaves are also different. So there are more than one variable that is changed. The roots is changed, the leaves are also changed. So more than one variable is changed. So this is obviously not possible. It is not fair and it's not meeting the aim of the experiment. Option 3, N and O. N and O. So if you let's take a look. It has got roots, yes, And the only difference is the number of leaves. So we can expect that this is a possible answer. And of course, we expect 4 to be wrong now, but let's take a look why. N and P. Now, N has got different number of leaves. It has different number of roots. The roots is gone. And the water level is also different. So there are 3 different changes that has been made in this setups. So you would expect that it is not going to be a fair one. So we cannot allow these 2 setups to be used. So answer is 3. Question 13. The table below shows a list of organs matched to their functions. So let's examine the table and see which 2 of the following organs are correctly matched to their functions. So mouth, we know that the mouth does break food down into a smaller pieces. In fact, to be more specific, the part of the mouth is the teeth, right? That breaks it down. So this is true. Yes? Next, B. Lungs transport digested food and water to the whole part of the body. I think we all know that is wrong. The lungs take in oxygen. It supports gaseous exchange. Alright? So this is wrong. So transport digested food and water to the whole body should be the circulatory system. Part of that is the blood vessels. Alright, so you should have the blood vessels instead. Okay. C. Stomach churns and makes food with digestive juices. That is true. Small intestine absorb water? No. Alright, it absorbs digested food, but it does not absorb water. This should be the large intestine for this to be correct. Yeah? So answer in this case should be A and C. 2. Question 14. Which of the following 2 systems work together to ensure that the food we eat can be absorbed and carried to all parts of the body? Now, let's be careful. Work together, which 2 systems, okay, ensure that the food we eat get absorbed and carried. So when we see food eaten, we need the digestive system to break down the food. And the food needs to be carried to different parts of the body, and we therefore need the circulatory system. Alright? So answer is A and C. Question 15. Joyce put a plant inside a black box as shown. Then she made a hole in the side of the box before placing the set up in a well-lit place and watered the plant daily. A few days later, she observed that the plant grew and the plant bent as shown. Now, why did it bend? Most likely to respond to a change. Okay, so these are all characteristics of living things, growing, responding to change. So, at which of the above positions could the hole be made? Now, why is it going to be bending? Because it is responding to possibly light, because this is a black box, so light is not able to enter, and in order for the plant to survive, it needs to get light, right? So if a hole is going to be cut somewhere in the box, which she have done, okay, the plant will definitely grow towards the hole so as to receive light and make food through its leaves, so as to keep itself living or to keep itself alive. So in this case, I think the answer is H, because it's bending towards H, right? So H must be where the light is, and the plant is responding to this change. Answer is 4. Question 16. Jiaqi prepared the following setup by splitting the stem of a flower into 2 halves as shown. Okay, so in one part of the stem, it is dipped in red colored water, and the other part you will have blue colored water. Now this is actually a very interesting way to dye a flower, to color a flower artificially. Alright, so let me show you, if you've not seen before, how the actual effect might look like. Now let's take a look at this picture here that I've just pulled out from the internet. Alright, so you have a white flower and you realize that the stem is like what is shown in the question in question 16. It is being split into two, and one side is deep into red and the other side is deep into a blue dye. Alright, and what you see, observe about the white flower is such that there are some parts of it, in fact half of the flower is dyed red and the other half is dyed blue. Okay, so that's one thing for sure. Okay, we do not expect the two colors to mix. Yeah, so we will not expect anything mixed, and that means that we'll not see any purple parts in the flower. Okay, and the next thing that you must know is that water is being carried up in the stem through special vessels, all right, or special tubes. All right, so this is another picture I would like to show you about the stem. Now, if you take a cross section, that means if I were to chop the stem into two across, just like how it is shown in this question here, and I have a top-down view, I look from the top down, I would see that you have actually this interesting parts that make up the stem. And the part that I would like to draw your attention to is what we call the xylem, or sometimes we call the water carrying tube. Okay, so if you zoom into the xylem, here the orange portion, it actually looks like this. You have some of these interesting cells that is stacked from one end to another, and it allows water to pass through them, right? So this is called a xylem. Okay, and you realize that they are actually continuous columns in which water can pass through. All right, so this is how the internal structure of a xylem will look like. So coming back to our question, let's look at the keys here. All right, if it has got this pattern here that is shown, you expect this to be red, shaded to be blue, and solid color to be purple. Now, since the water is being carried up via the water carrying tubes, these are found within this kind of little structures here. We do not expect any of the dye to be found in between here. So straight away I can rule out option 3 and option 2. Alright, because you have got dye that's coming to these sections here, which is not possible. Alright, so that leaves us with only 1 and 2. But earlier on, if you realize what I said, the water do not actually mix. Right, the colored water do not mix. In fact, on one side of the flower you see red, and the other side we see blue. So if I were to draw a line here, right, all the red water is actually traveling from here up to this part of the flower, and the blue water is actually traveling up from this part. So you will not expect any mixing at all. So I will expect this red color, this purple color section here to be wrong. All right, this is solid, so it's purple. So no mixing is allowed. So in fact, half of it is red and the other half is blue. So answer in this case is 1. I hope you are clear about what is going on here. If not, please come and look for me for further explanation. Question 17. The diagram below shows a pair of scissors with parts X and Y. So which material are most suitable for making parts X and Y? Okay, so in part X here, you expect this to be made of metal. This is how you usually find scissors to be made of. And Y to be usually made of plastic. Okay, so answer is 1 without any further explanation. Question 18. Aliyah needs to make a glove for washing the dishes. So the glove is actually to ensure that she waterproofs as hell and the water doesn't get through the gloves and ends up on her hand. She wants to keep dry. So which of the following properties of material does she need to consider when making a glove? So it must be able to, not that it's hard, not that it is strong. Okay. In this case, of course, we need a glove to be waterproof. Other properties that make sense here in this case should be flexible, because she needs to be dexterous when she's cleaning the plates, right? She needs to move around. So if it's not flexible, she will not be able to do the washing of the dishes. So 3 is a possible answer. Whether it sinks in water or not, it is not really important. All right. So answer in this case is 3. Question 19. Ian was given 4 types of paper bags. 4 types of paper bags. And she put 1 orange at a time into a bag until it tore. So she recorded the number of oranges that she could put into the bag before it tore. Alright, so different types of paper: wax paper, newspaper, tissue paper, and construction paper. And she counted the number of oranges that the bag could hold before it tore. And so if you take a look here, the one that is strongest is obviously the wax paper. It was able to hold 10 oranges before it break. Construction paper able to hold 7, and so on and so forth. So which is the paper that is the strongest? Yes, strongest. So in this case, it's the one that is able to hold the most. So answer is wax paper 1. Alright, question 20, the last question of booklet A. Pearline needed to make a toy boat. So a toy boat should be a one that is able to float. And she had 4 materials, A, B, and C, and D. And she placed these 4 materials in water and observes the following. So after 10 minutes, she saw some changes, right? You realize that material D actually, instead of staying afloat that it became partially submerged. So the word here is partially or partly submerged. Okay, so this is fully floating, right? So this is floating, and this is fully, in fact these two are fully submerged. So which material should she use to make her toy boat? If you realize, okay, you need to have something that is floating, right, to make a toy boat. So if something happens to be sinking or submerged, you will not expect them to be able to float, your toy boat to float. So B and A has to be out straight away. But if you take a look at D is able to float, but after 10 minutes it became partially submerged, and that means that this material is not really waterproof, right? So it's not really waterproof. So like a paper, it can absorb water, all right? So if it's absorbing water, it is not waterproof and it will end up sinking. So D is not possible as well. So I can cross out D. So what's suitable is object C. Okay, question 21, first question of booklet B. Study the diagram below carefully. Part A. Which group of animal does this organism belong to? Group of animals. You know, animal is a kingdom, and we talked about this earlier on. So this belongs to the group birds, right? So let me rewrite this. It belongs to the group birds. Part B. Name the outer covering of this group of animals. Okay, this is an ostrich. Okay, it is a bird. So the outer covering for birds are feathers. So feathers. Part C. How does this group of animal reproduce? It reproduces by laying eggs. Alright. Question 22. Question 22. The picture below shows some organs in the human body. So put a tick in the correct boxes above to show where digestion takes place. Where it takes place. So digestion takes place in the mouth. Okay, this is the mouth. And it also takes place in the stomach. So in here, stomach. It also takes place in the small intestine. Okay. However, it does not take place in the large intestine. In the large intestine, we have the absorption of water mainly. And this is the anus, so no digestion as well. So only 3 places. Ensure that you have all these 3 ticks. Okay, so do note that in the place where digestion takes place, you also have digestive juices found in these organs. Digestive juices. Alright, in places where we do not have digestion, we do not have any digestive juices. Now put a cross in the correct boxes above to show where water is removed from undigested food. So the only place that has water absorption going on from undigested food is the large intestine. So we put a cross. Identify organ W. W is not exactly an organ actually. So, but we can call this the windpipe. Some of you may even know this is called the trachea. Alright, so this is only for your information. It is not required of you to know this in primary school, but it is good if you do know it. Yeah. Part D. Which organ system? Now, organ system does W belong to? Now, W belongs to the respiratory system. Question 23. Joey observed the height of 2 living and non-living things. So 2 living and non-living things, G and H, over a period of 4 weeks and recorded her findings in the table below. Now, so you do not know, you have G and you have H, but you don't know which is the living thing and which is the non-living thing. Alright, but the characteristics that is being measured here or recorded here is the height. Alright, so which is most likely a living thing? Now you see that the height of this G is actually increasing. And this one here is constant. It does not change. So obviously G is the living thing, because the reason being the height of G increases. Okay, this shows that it is growing. Alright, so first thing first, if I break down my answer for you, you should see that I have 2 parts in here. The first, I use the information in the diagram to help me answer the question. So the height increases, right? And for that, I will award you half a mark. Okay. Next, if you say that because it increases, this shows that it is growing and hence a living thing, we give another half mark. Alright? So always make use of information given to support what you're going to say. Alright? So because the height increases, you can say that it is growing, and therefore it is a living thing. Yes? Part C. What do you think the heights of G and H would be in week 5? Okay, so what do you think is gonna be in week 5? You expect for sure H will not see any changes, so we'll keep it at 8. Alright. For H, what could it be in week 5? As long as you show that there is an increase, I think it will be okay. So any number, right, greater than or equals to 10 is acceptable. So you give me 11, 12, 13, that will be fine. Alright? Any value above 10. Equals or above to 10. Above 10, sorry. Question D. Joey was sniffing at a flower and she suddenly sneezed. What characteristic of living things does this show? Now, I think we have mentioned about the characteristics of living thing over and over again. So, the obvious thing that we can say here, the characteristics of living things in general, is she's able to respond to changes in the surrounding. Question 24. The classification chart below shows how animals are grouped. So study the diagram carefully and answer the questions below. Question A. Fill in the blanks in the diagram above with a suitable answer. So first we have animals, and then there is a sub branch here. It branches into two. One of it is giving birth to young alive. So in this branch here, the answer should be the other way of reproduction, correct? So this is how it reproduces, correct? So it should be lay eggs. Part B. Which of the animals above has definitely been grouped wrongly? So let's examine the animals. Under can fly, eagles, yes, eagle is a bird that can fly. Cockroach, yes, it can fly too. Although you don't see it flying really, sometimes cockroach can fly. Cannot fly, penguin, yes, penguin is a flightless bird, it can only swim, so it's a bird. Ostrich, also a flightless bird, yes, so correct. Give birth to young alive, can swim. So give birth to young alive, true, can swim, true. Now, goldfish, does it give birth to young alive? No, so goldfish usually lay eggs. So this is the one that's wrong. Let's check if there are anything else that's wrong. Cow, give birth? Yes. It's a mammal. Cannot swim? Yes. Bat, give birth? Yes. So by the way, bat is not a bird. Bat is a mammal. Okay? Please take note. And it also cannot swim. So only thing that's wrong here is the goldfish. Part C. Now Reef D wants to put dog in the same group as penguin. Now why is he wrong? So he wants to put dog in this group here. So let's run through the classification table and see why. Dog, can it lay egg? No. Alright, so the dogs is a mammal. Dogs are mammals. They give birth. So number one, it is wrong because of this. Cannot fly is true though. So the only problem with this is that in this group, the dog does not lay eggs. So that is the answer. Egg. Or you can say dog does not reproduce by laying eggs. Question D. Animal Q is classified in the same group as cow. So we put Q here, right? So describe two characteristics of Q. So obviously we just have to make use of the table to help us, right? So you need to know here that it gives birth, it cannot swim. So these are the two characteristics that you just have to list down. You do not have to come up with anything here. Just have to use the table to give you the characteristics. So Q give birth to young alive and it cannot swim. Question 25. The diagram below shows two plants A and B. Okay, and they which were left in the sun and were given enough water. So information that's important here is that they were in the sun and they were given enough water. Alright, so the leaves of plant A were covered with black paper. So you have black paper here. Alright, for A. So question comes, what do you think will happen to plant A after 1 week? And explain your answer. Now, the reason why we have black paper there is black paper does not allow light to pass through. So, without light, the leaf cannot make food, right? So, therefore, the plant will not have food. So without food, it is most likely to die after 1 week. So the first part of the question is asking here what will happen after 1 week. I expect you to say the plant will die. Alright. Why is this so? Because the plant leaf were unable to make food since they are covered in black paper. So without food, living things cannot survive. So let's break down the answers into two parts here. The plant will die, alright, if you got this right, or the plant will wither, alright, you will get half the credit. Sorry, half the credit means 1 mark. And the other half comes from you are able to say that it's not able to make food, okay, so not able to survive. Living things unable to survive. This will give you another 1 mark. These 2 points. So 1 mark. So that will give you your total of 2 marks. Now part B. Which plant is most likely to be uprooted during a thunderstorm? Explain your answer. So the first part and second part of the question. So we need to choose which is the plant that is most likely to be that will be uprooted. Huh? So we know that the part of the plant that keeps the plant firmly rooted to the ground is obviously the root. So the root that grows deep into the soil is expected to be the one that holds the plant firmly. So the one here that we can see, plant D, is the one that is most shallow, right? The root doesn't go deep. So this is the one that is likely. So answer in this case is plant D. This is because its roots. Okay, here there are three plants. I'm expecting you to use some comparative terms. Its roots, okay, was the shallowest. Alright, or you can say the least shallow. And cannot hold the plant as firmly as C and D. Question C. The roots of E are swollen because it stores what? Food for the plant. Okay, so this is a kind of specialized root. So you know, for plants such as carrots and turnip, so you realize that this root here has an additional function. We know that the function of root, okay, is to mainly absorb water and hold the plant firmly to the ground. But in this case, plant D has a additional function here, that's why we call it specialized. It can store food. Okay, not all plants, only in certain plants such as carrot, turnip, beetroot, right, to name a few. Question 26. Yasin was asked to do the following task, not in order: running, sitting, and walking, and his heartbeat was recorded in the chart below. So we see that the heartbeat actually went up, then down. So which activity could Yasin be doing at point X? So at point X is where you see the highest beat rate, right? Beats per minute was the highest, heartbeats per minute was the highest. So we need to think about these activities to see which is the one that is the most strenuous, right? The most strenuous exercise in this tree obviously is running, right? So since you have the highest heart rate, it should be Yasin should be running. Next, other than his heartbeat, Yasin's rate of blank will also increase when running. So apart from the heart rate, when your heart needs to beat faster, the body also needs to take in more oxygen and expel more carbon dioxide. So the body needs to take in more oxygen and expel more carbon dioxide. So therefore, our rate of breathing should also be increased. Part C. Yasin decides to go to sleep. Complete the graph after the dotted line to show his heartbeat during sleep. So sleep should have the lowest among the three. There are three here: running, sitting, and walking. Alright, so you expect sleeping to be somewhat lower than all these. So we can draw something like this. As long as you show a decrease, right, it is acceptable. Name the organ system that enables him to move about. For us to move about, we need two systems. We need our bones, which is the skeletal system. Okay? Skeletal system and the muscular system. Now, in fact, these two systems are always commonly linked together. Sometimes we call it the musculoskeletal system. All right, so let me write this down for you for your information. Sorry, it should be called the musculoskeletal system. So this is how usually this system can be referred to, but of course it is made up of two systems, the muscular system and the skeletal system. Now, so please take note of the spelling here. So in this question, Joseph uses a catapult to hit far away things, and there are two main parts in the catapult, M and N. So question A, you're asked to write down the materials that can be used. So in part M, this material must be flexible. Alright, this is the property. But what material is flexible? So for the last part, part D, both part M and N are made of materials which are strong. Now state another property for each of M and N. Property. So they mentioned strong here. So we talk about N being flexible. So it should go in here. And part N, since it has already mentioned strong, so what other properties can we talk about? Now, if you do recall, we have a few material properties that we talk about. So we have strong, so we do talk about it being strong, a strong material, one that is able to support a lot of weight without breaking or tearing. And the opposite of it versus is weak. Yes, flexible versus inflexible, or we can call it stiff. We can also learn able to float in water versus sink in water. There is also waterproof versus not waterproof. And lastly, transparent. Or if it's not, or we can say translucent or opaque. So these are the properties that we talk about. We need to think of one that is suitable for us to fill it in. So since strong is being ruled out for this case, strong is being ruled out here. What else can we put in? That actually makes sense. That is actually relevant to the question here. I think the answer should be stiff, because you do not want this part N to be bending when you are actually pulling on this part here. So answer would be stiff only. Alright, the other properties that they mentioned here, they are not too they're not too relevant to the needs of this equipment here. Okay, not too relevant. Question 28. Now Emmanuel covered three similar beakers with three different types of material A, B, and C. Then he placed the same amount of ice cubes onto each material as shown. So the test here that Emmanuel did was to make sure that the number of ice cubes were the same, and then the materials was changed. So obviously the change variable here, or the independent variable, or I call it the change variable, is the type of material. Okay, so now going to question A, circle the correct answer. Besides keeping the number of ice cubes the same, which I just mentioned for all the beakers, Emmanuel also had to keep blank, which one? The same, to ensure his test was fair. So we have to keep the type of material different, right? Because that is the change variable. So answer in this case should be thickness of material. Yes, so this is the one. This is a unchanged variable. Okay? Or the dependent variable. So this has to be changed to ensure a fair test. Okay, part B. Using the results above, which materials A, B, C, or D is best for making the canopy of an umbrella? So the answer in this case, if you go back to the previous slide, we need to look for something that is waterproof, right? We want a waterproof material. So based on what we have there, we should be using material C, because it is the one that does not allow water to seep through, and so it shows the best waterproofing. So you can say this in option C, in question C, it does not allow water from the melting ice to seep through, so it has the best water proofing. D. What is another property of the material that is used for making the canopy of the umbrella? Now, because the umbrella can be folded, we need to make sure that it is also flexible. Okay? Because this needs to close, right? The umbrella needs to be closed when it's not in use, so it has to be flexible. Alright, so we have come to the end of booklet B. So make sure that all your corrections has been completed, and notes that needs to be taken is recorded on your piece of paper, and then you need to submit this back to me in class.